Ready, set, go. Tom Shanahan,
Good to be here.
welcome to North Carolina, man.
Thank you so much.
Is this your first time visiting?
The state?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. First of all, I was on the other side of the mountain not too long ago with my mom. We went to Dollywood and then Gatlinburg, and we went up into the park, and we did some hiking up in Smoky Mountain National Park. And I've been to your state before as well to do some kiteboarding out on the Atlantic coast, Cape Hatteras, also the beach out there, and back and forth between Raleigh and the shoreline. So it's a big state. It's a beautiful state. But I'm really excited to be here in Cherokee and in Bryson City doing something with Caleb McCoy, Caitlin Ledford, yourself, to talk about what I think is a really critical moment in the addiction recovery field, and that's this growing active sober movement that is changing the way people live all around the country and the world. So thank you so much for having us.
You're playing a influential role in that growing active
I'm trying.
movement.
I'm trying. You know, I back in 2012, I had the idea to write a book about the lifestyle that I was living, which I hadn't heard about or had anybody really teach me in the context of the recovery community. And so I started writing that book in 2013. And as I wrote the book, I said to myself, this is crazy. There is a whole grassroots movement happening like all around the country, and nobody's really talking about it. And there's no place for people to go, in the sense for like-minded people to be organizing and working together. I couldn't believe it. So I saw that as a gift from God and really an opportunity to become the person who maybe could condense into one book a how-to manual to restore your physical health along with your mental health in addiction recovery, and at the same time give the history of the active sober movement and introduce people. That's okay, Kel.
Slams his mug
Was
down.
lifted in too many ways this morning.
and introduce people all over the world to the leaders in this emerging sober movement. And so two of them are sitting in the room with us right now. That's Caleb McCoy and Caitlin. And so it's really exciting. That's why I'm here. Caleb is a chapter inspiration in my book. He's among, I think, the first in the book. And the reason I put him first was I was just so blown away by his decision earlier in the year to run 777 miles along the Trail of Tears to highlight what's happening in his own community, his Cherokee Nation here. So I said, anybody who's going to do that is someone I want to know, and he's going to be in. So the book had already been laid out. I don't know if you know this, but it had already been laid out, and it was kind of late in the process. But I spoke to my publisher about it, and everybody agreed we're going to make the edits and we're going to change it around and get them in the book. So
That's so awesome.
You hear that?
I was on
love
the
this
run.
guy.
I was on the run, and I mean, he messaged. He's like, "I need you to get me this information. Like, you need to sit down and write this stuff down so I can put you in the book." And if I'd have known that he was going to put down everything that I wrote, I'd have made it some big immaculate, But I didn't know, and I was tired at that time. But I just
that's what made
appreciate
it so perfect is he didn't know.
Yeah.
He did it because he wanted to do it, because he's the real deal. And so, I mean, it's a beautiful thing when you do something without the goal or the intention of making it about you or for your own personal gain. And it turns out because you did the right thing, you became part of the story.
It's exactly what we were talking about outside before we started, to being true to yourself and that kind of genuine authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of times whenever, because it's hard whenever y'all start talking like, oh, Caleb, it's hard for me because I try to make sure that I'm in check with my humility and, my humbleness and everything. And so when y'all start saying that, it gets a little uncomfortable, but then I'm like.
I'm going to tell you when to start worrying, okay? When he starts talking about himself in the third person. Caleb McCoy, where's somebody? When he starts that, Caitlin.
Who you think? You think about somebody?
I'm thinking about somebody, but we're not going to put him on blast today.
Okay.
Anyways.
So the outcome of this idea, this concept of you starting this book led to Spiritual Adrenaline, which then kind of like grew into this sort of community because you were reaching out to guys like Caleb
Right.
and others who were
Right.
featured in the book.
Right.
and building those authentic relationships with them.
Right. Right. I mean, I looked at, let me just go back for your viewers so they understand how it all started. Okay. So when I got sober back in May 2011, I went into a rehab at 140 pounds and I left at 177. And I continued to put more weight on in early recovery. And I actually started smoking more cigarettes in early recovery than I had smoked in active addiction. Okay. And so I came to a point where I started to realize, like, I go to a meeting or whatever and people are smoking outside. I'm outside smoking. I'm leaving the meeting for a smoke in the middle, that kind of a thing. We go out to eat afterwards and we go to like a diner or a pizzeria. And I started to really recognize, and I'm speaking for myself, but that the lifestyle wasn't consistent with what I was going to the meeting for. I didn't feel that I had changed much of my lifestyle in a manner that was consistent with living as a sober person. Like, for example, smoking, and I'm not being judgmental. I smoked for 24 years, but there's no one who can look me in the eye and tell me that smoking is not a drug. It's not a drug, and it doesn't impact you in the same way drugs or alcohol do.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah.
I mean, it does. All my friends were smokers. The places I went, the way I walked to places was around when I could smoke. You know, I'd go to an airport and be like, I can't wait to get where I'm going. I can't take it. I can't take it. Maybe I can smoke it. Maybe I can sneak a cigarette, you know, in the bathroom.
You did.
No, I didn't do that.
I mean, but
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're like.
You plan your life around the drug.
Right.
And so smoking is consistent with behaviors. To make a long story short, there was nobody really talking about the lifestyle issues in the recovery, the 12-step world, or that I was part of. So I went outside the program for that, and I met people at the gym. One is named Mike Foley. He's a sports nutritionist. And then another one, Dr. Michael Bedex. And Mr. Foley, Mike got me started on eating right. Like, I would go out during my workouts. I would go outside to smoke a cigarette, and he would come outside and go, why do you bother coming here?
At the gym.
Yeah, at the gym. Why are you here? Why do you even bother?
That was me.
What was your answer?
I was embarrassed. Like, I mean, he made me really, it's a simple truth in life. So I was just like, he's right.
I would get mad. Caleb would be like,
She would run multiple miles and jump off.
I didn't
I'd
know
smoke
that.
a cigarette.
I didn't know
and
that.
run a bunch of miles and then smoke right afterwards. And then when he would call me on my BS, I'd be like, well, I can do it.
Well, then, I was dipping skull at the time. She's like, well, when you stop dipping, I'll stop. So we did. We stopped the same day.
Wow. Oh, wait, I wasn't even aware of that. So you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And then, so Mike Foley got me started on the nutrition end of it. Dr. Bedex, Michael Bedex, who's also up in Portland, Maine, you know, he said to me once, like, you know, you really should have your blood tested because I smoked for 24 years. I did drugs for about 20. He's like, you know, you should see what's happening inside your body. You can't see that on the outside. Never heard that before, right? And so I was really skeptical, but I said, okay, let me go. So I did. My blood work showed I had 5 times an increased risk of heart disease. It showed I had high white blood cell counts from, I think, inflammation from the smoking, and also my immune system reacting to the trauma I was putting my body under. It was just, my blood work told me, I was pre-diabetic or almost pre-diabetic. It just told the story of all the abuse my body had taken. And I'd never heard that before in recovery community. So I wanted to write a book that brought and integrated these issues into an existing program, the lifestyle issues. And so that's what gave birth to Spiritual Adrenaline. And then there's a handful of people in the country now, maybe a little bit more than that, that are leaders in this movement. They've been doing this a very, very long time. All of them had that same epiphany at one point. They were, quote unquote, sober, but they didn't feel good and they weren't happy. They weren't happy. And so all of us have had that similar experience and circumstance. And, it's great to be among those like-minded people because there were times I said to myself, maybe you're just crazy, right? Maybe, you shouldn't necessarily worry about those issues because you're not doing drugs or drinking. But I think my experience and the experience of the people who comprise the active sober movement is that we weren't necessarily happy. We were more abstinent than sober. And with the lifestyle modifications and adjustments, we were able to develop a lifestyle that enhanced our willingness to abstain from alcohol and drugs, enhanced it, not undercut it, and that led to true physical and emotional sobriety.
That's such trailblazing stuff, Tom. For real. Like, just hearing you talk about that, and I mean, just that's my passion. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
I love coming to the gym. I love helping people, you know, on their fitness journeys, and you know, and helping them push themselves to places they've never been before, and just seeing the joy in their lives for that feeling of accomplishment and feeling of taking care of their bodies, and you know, I mean, because it's something that you do not only for yourself but for your families, for your loved ones and everything, and I think it's very important.
I think there's a high percentage that struggle with that, like you were saying, you know, just the getting into recovery, gaining all the weight. I mean, that was my typical evening was, let's go out and eat dinner, then after dinner, let's go to a meeting. You know, that was hanging out for us.
Right.
And we weren't going to get no vegan, vegetarian type or healthy food. It was fried
Philly
foods,
steak and cheese,
Philly steak and cheese.
Bean bread.
bean bread, fatback greens.
Fried bread. But that's the truth of it. And then just like, you know, like cigarettes for me, anytime I got stressed out, even though I was abstaining from using drugs, anytime I got stressed out, aggravated, mad, whatever, I use cigarettes as my coping
Me as
mechanism.
well. You know, let me just give some context to the conversation, because there are there are people out there, I haven't looked at the messages that are coming in as we're speaking, that are saying, you are full of it, you're a jerk. If I'm not drinking or doing drugs, you know, that's enough.
Oh,
And you know what? This is an outside issue, and it's not appropriate to have this discussion in the context of addiction recovery. Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I respectfully disagree. But let me tell you why. It's not just my opinion. The Mayo Clinic put out a study a few years back, and they did a very exhaustive study on deaths of people who had acknowledged they were part of the recovery community. 52% of all people who acknowledge or admit being part of the recovery community died of some type of smoking-related illness, either from smoking and active addiction or from continuing to smoke after they quote-unquote became sober, number one. Number two, there's no dispute on these facts. These statistics are real. If you look at, there's a whole host of studies that talk about type 2 diabetes and hypoglycemia in the addiction recovery community. People who are presenting at rehabs, inpatient rehabs, when the ones that are tested, anywhere between 65 to 92% of people coming into inpatient rehab are either type 2 diabetic or hypoglycemic. It's a major problem, blood sugar problem, disease in the addiction recovery community. And it's directly related to the intake. You know, like alcohol is a huge amount of sugar. It's a huge amount of glucose. So it's calorie rich, completely nutrient deficient, and comprises the vast majority of the diet of an alcoholic. Yeah. And so, you know, we have to take into account these types of abuses of our body. And, you know, I think many people who do get sober and don't necessarily recognize that the internal damage that was done to the body is there and needs to be worked on. And one last thing, too, I think is really important to mention. Type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes. They changed the name of the disease because teenagers, people in their 20s, their 30s, are now being, you know, testing as being type 2 diabetic. That's a dietary issue, okay? And it's bad enough in the general population, but when you get into the recovery community, Bill W., who founded Alcoholics Anonymous, and this goes back right to the beginning of the 12 steps, said you should avoid the sister foods to alcohol. The sister foods to alcohol were French fries and other types
sugars and carbs.
Exactly. And so this is not a new concept. It had been there in the beginning of the founding of the 12-step community. Somewhere along the lines, and I'm not sure exactly why, the lifestyle message was, got lost in all of this. But what we're talking about is completely consistent with what the founders of the 12 Steps, Bill Wilson, Dr. Bob, and Dr. Silkworth, were talking about in the 1930s. And the statistics show people who incorporate these types of lifestyle changes have a much lower relapse rate and a higher satisfaction of happiness
Yes,
in sobriety.
come on, that's so
And
true.
that's what it shows.
That's so true. And I mean that's just living proof for me anyways, because like the healthier I get, the stronger I get, I just have so much joy, and it's proven, the endorphins and all of that. But I wanted to kind of mention just about, you was talking about type 2 diabetes, and I mean, studies show the proof about the in the recovery community, but also to take it a step further for Native Americans.
Yes, how prevalent it is in our communities.
It's just, I mean, you throw that on top of on top of being in recovery and not having a good environment that promotes healthy lifestyles, not only just abstaining but all around well-being.
As a man of God and as a Christian,
Yes.
I want at the end of my time when I have to go in front of my God and He says, "What did you do? Was you a good steward of the time that I allowed you?" I don't want to sit there and be like, or be told, "Well, you could have lived 10 years longer if you'd been taking care of the body I give you." I don't want that, and so I think about that, and I think about how much destruction I put my body through when I was using drugs.
Let me ask both of you, because you're both people who are very firm and you share about your Christian faith.
Mm-hmm.
When you were abusing your body, was it possible for you to feel a spiritual connection to God or a higher power? And how is it now, if at all different, that you're taking care of your body? Are you more able to connect on the spiritual level? Because I think this is a huge thing that people need to understand.
So for me, I had so many things blocking that, what's the word I'm looking for? Blocking that,
Your connection.
my connection. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so like for me, ultra running, I don't have I'm not using anything, like even caffeine. I tell Caitlin now, because a lot of times before my races, I'll take I'll drink a cup of coffee or something. So now I'm trying to stay away from that. I have a lot of my best downloads whenever I'm not using anything. Right? It's like a fast for me. I can talk to God, and I feel like I'm in direct contact with Him during those times. So yeah, I mean, just not having any junk food, any those bad carbs and everything. I feel a lot closer to God. It clouds my thinking.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I can honestly say that when I was using drugs, I was completely surrounded in darkness, and there wasn't I wasn't even listening, but now being where I'm at, I'm actually listening, but I do like, being able to pray and connect and just have that conversation, not only for myself, but for others as well. And then, just to, cause I'm not going to lie, Tom, this morning I woke up, even last night, I was praying for strength cause I was like, I'm getting ready to go work out with some intense, tough people. And I'm like, God, give me that strength. And if I was in any other kind of a mindset, I wouldn't be able to connect with Him. Because Tom,
did we answer your question?
You did.
I didn't train like Caleb did to go on that run. I did not train like he did.
Well, you didn't even expect to go for as long as you went.
I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't even planning on any of that, and God made a way. I truly believe that. I think that if I wasn't supposed to be out there when I was, then there would have been things that would have kept me here. But I feel like when you just, He gave me that strength. He provided that way, and it's amazing because I ran my first mile in January.
Wow.
And then was running with him like over 400 miles.
I know.
6 months later.
We hear, when we was out there on the run, and we had my mom, she'd be like, we'd hit a wall and be like, well, I don't know, it's too, we can't go any further. And she's like, y'all stayed up for weeks at a time. You can't run a few more miles. I just want to stop for just a second, Rob, and give the amazing Robin Duncan a shout out.
Yeah.
We're coming to you live from Shift Wellness here in Bryson City. So I just wanted to let her know how much we appreciate her.
And thank you for
and
that.
love
Thank
her.
you,
She
Robin.
let us work out here this morning. It was a real kick-in workout. And what I love about this gym too, not only is it a great gym, but we were able to see the sunrise from where we were
Yes.
working out
Yeah.
over the Great
Beautiful
Smoky
view.
Mountains. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
And just things like that, I mean, if we wouldn't notice things like that,
Right.
I mean, the beauty and things and the creation and stuff. And just, I mean, like you were sharing this morning, just being on, on Mount Everest and just being able to take that in. And
We're going to have to go with you next time.
You know what I say
I
about
know, if you leave
You're more than
me
welcome
again.
to talk about that training. Let me tell you, that's something you want to train for. What's interesting about what you said is what I realize now is like sunrises and sunsets are some of my favorite things, right? And I love when I'm there to enjoy them, right? But they're going to happen whether I'm there to enjoy them or not.
Yes, that's
Whether I choose to even acknowledge. Like I remember walking around New York City where I live, and be so tired and miserable and broke, all these different things, looking down at the cigarettes on the floor. I'm just like, growling to myself. So, now I woke up, I'm looking up. I notice like the sun setting in the distance sometimes on the west side. I notice the bright lights. I see like parents with their kids and the glow in the children's eye when they see Times Square. Like there is beauty all around us.
oh yes,
Whether we choose to acknowledge it is up to us.
right.
And so I think that that's been probably one of the greatest gifts to me is that my eyes have been opened. I really do believe that.
And that beauty's really just amplified here where we live because of like the seasons and the mountains and like I have a pretty epic view. And no matter
It's
what
pretty
time of the
good.
day, I look out
It's
there,
pretty good.
it's badass, right? But it's different every single moment that I look out,
Right,
because the
right,
cloud
right.
formations and certain amount of light coming in or out, and then whether there's leaves on the trees and what color the leaves are. But I always make sure I notice it, like throughout the day. Like I always just like gaze out and periodically and just notice that it's unique in this moment right now today. What was that progression like, Tom? When you said you started eating healthy, like you approached
Yeah.
it with nutrition first.
Yeah,
was
there's a lot
was your first action that you took, right?
Well,
Was addressing your diet?
Yeah, it was the diet. So like, it sounded conceptually like a good idea, but it's really hard in the beginning. And so in the book, I write about this a lot. It's just like, it's not in the book, it's not a fad diet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a 30-day thing. You do it and you go back to whatever you're doing. It's a lifestyle.
That's
And the way you the way you create a lifestyle is small incremental changes over time that both you like and number two is sustainable, that you can start to see the positive consequences of the action, and it builds your own buy-in into these changes. So for me, it was not eating the jelly donuts and the culottes. I actually would go to Dunkin' Donuts and think I was having a culotta. That was a fruit drink. That was healthy. I swear to God. I know it was full of sugar and it's not real fruit. It's, I'm not making this up. Like I thought that was a healthy thing to do with 2 jelly donuts. So, I mean, it was little changes. And
You got the fruit from the donuts, right?
Exactly. No, it's just crazy. But like, it was like I was so used to eating fast food as I wasn't able to cook my own food. I didn't have take the time to do it. So it was just starting to have fewer outside meals per day and start to actually prepare my own breakfast, those kinds of things. And then because I did every 6 months, this is again all in the book, like every 6 months I would test my blood, and we started to see changes, like positive changes on what was happening inside of my body. So I thought that was a remarkable thing to see that, because I was really concerned when I got my first blood work back. And then he got me because I was like, I'm not writing down what I eat. What are you, crazy? I don't have the time to do that. Well, first of all, when I was chasing my drug dealer, I had all the time in the world.
Plenty of time.
That's right.
Okay, so let's be real.
Yes.
Okay, and when I was at a bar, I go to a bar and say, "Oh, I'm just going to stay for 2 drinks." Well, when they closed at 4 in the morning,
Right.
so you find time for your priorities in life. Okay, so I started logging about my food, which was, I mean, it sounds hard, but it's really easy once you get used to it. And what was interesting is I wouldn't want to write down certain things I was eating.
Because you had
Right.
that shame and guilt.
Yeah. And I was like,
So
I
you
really
would conveniently not
right.
log.
So I stopped logging. I wouldn't log those things. But Mike Foley, is the best. He's been doing this for over 20 years. He's over about 20,000 clients probably now. So I would go in. He would measure my weight and my body fat every week, and I would omit items from my food log. So my weight would go up and my body fat would go up. He goes, "So what did you really eat?" I said, "Oh, it's right there in the log." He's like, "No, it's not in the log because you wouldn't have got." so, he was like the first person who called me out on that kind of stuff in my whole life. And so then I started to think about it. Okay, why would I want to put something in my body that I'm so upset I'm eating it that I wouldn't write it down? Like, I didn't
Yeah.
want evidence, okay?
Right.
And why would I eat things so in secret? It's very much like drugs,
Right.
right? So, that made me think. And then as I got more honest with myself, it became easier to actually eat more clean food and actually be able to write down my whole diet or what I was eating on a weekly basis. And I think it's kind of like dominoes, only in a positive way. It's like the same thing is true in the negative way when you're around drug dealers or people that are in active addiction. There's a whole set of dominoes and consequences that you can't foresee, but they come naturally because of the people, places, and things you're around. But as I started to eat more appropriate foods, staying away from the sugars and the caffeines, something else magically happened. My thinking slowed down. I wasn't as jumpy. I wasn't as impulsive because the sugars and the caffeines really, really played a role in that. And then the smoking became much less desirable because it didn't fit anymore. But I couldn't stop because they put over 2,000 chemicals into a cigarette. They create the cigarette so it can get deep, deep, deep penetration into your lungs. And I thought by far the hardest drug to quit. But it just didn't fit anymore. And the cleaner I lived in the context of my exercise program and my nutritional program, the more it became crystal clear to me that I had to stop smoking. 2 years after I gave up alcohol and drugs, stopped smoking.
Hell yeah.
That was a long time ago. Yeah, it was like
Congratulations.
5 plus years ago. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And then afterwards, you're like, man, I can't believe I ever did that.
Yeah.
I mean,
You've been
that's how
to
I am. That's how I am now.
you've been to Everest Base Camp twice now on the
I
money
know.
you saved.
No, I've been to actually on my anniversaries. You know this. I thank you for
Yeah.
reminding me. So on the anniversaries of my quitting smoking, which is September 27th, this is the actual date. I try and do something to celebrate no longer being a smoker. And amongst the things that I've done as part of that celebration is, I did surfing in Costa Rica and a hike, in the beautiful part of Costa Rica.
Dude, I got to hang out with this guy.
Yeah, I
For
know.
real.
I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro at 21,000 feet,
Oh, goodness.
the highest
Is
peak
that not?
in Africa. I climbed Mount Rainier in Washington State. And then I just came back, that's 14,005. And I just came back from climbing, trekking, it's called there, up to the Mount Everest Base Camp over 9 days. We were 8 days up and then 5 days back down to 18,500 feet. And I got to stand at the foot of the glacier. The main glacier on Mount Everest is large enough to fit into the Grand Canyon. Just to give you some
Holy
perspective
cow.
Wow.
on just how massive everything up
Right.
there. I mean, it boggles the mind. And I was standing there, like at the foot of the glacier at the camp, And I was looking around, Mount Everest on one side, the 4th highest mountain, I can't remember the names, one other side, the 8th highest over here. And I'm just like, this is what it looks like in heaven. Seriously. Like I felt so connected to God.
Awesome.
And the great thing was, and this is what's so true, and again, I keep saying in the book, I talk about this. See, I think that God knows we're all human, so that means we're fallible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So God thinks of everything. So what he did is he created a body that you can restore to health even after years of extreme abuse.
Mm-hmm.
My lungs functioned wonderfully. I don't have any issues climbing, even up to the elevations of 21,500 feet. I just don't. My liver function, it was bad in the first tests, has been restored. And this is like the message for people who maybe think, well, I'm not going to be able to restore my body to health. You can do it.
That's right.
Yep.
Your lungs, your liver, the other organs, the brain have the capacity to heal if you show them the respect they deserve.
Come on, Tom. That's good stuff.
I want you to just share, because, we have a group that we're wanting to take to the Pacific Coast. And, it's one thing for us to explain to them, like, some of the experiences that we had on the run to Oklahoma and whatnot. But this is like, you've been to all these different amazing places. What can you give them some encouraging words or some inspiration, some insight on just the emotions, the feelings that you encounter by doing those things?
Here's the thing. I think there's so many people who profit off our own self-doubt in ourselves. Because, you see, if you watch TV or if you on the internet, people, weight, people talk about weight and there's fat shaming going on. And, people are made, I think, oftentimes to feel less than. And if you want to be, popular or whatever, you should use wear this type of clothes that are really expensive. It's all, none of it matters. Here's the deal. What I tell people in recovery, like especially in the context of trying something new like that, when I was in active addiction, I always wanted to fit in. Yeah. And I wanted everyone to like me. My message to them is to fit out. Let everyone else fit in. Let them buy the expensive clothes. Fit out. Challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Step out of the comfort zone, right? And do something that you don't think you can do, to push yourself, because that's where life begins. And I also think that when you're in nature and you're out, like just driving to this gym along the river, I'm in love. I'm telling you, man, the Smoky Mountains.
The truth comes out while he was late. He was checking out the river.
I was watching. I actually was looking at all the. It's just spectacular.
He got lost.
But if someone, I think we lose the connection to a higher power. Clearly, the only connection we have is with the devil looking down at what's on the ground. That's how I look at it from my own point of view. So the reality is, to be back in nature, I think, in challenging yourself, connects you both to your own internal spirit and then also to a higher power, because you're surrounded by a majesty that's been created by something greater than us. And I just feel that being in that environment and being around people like Caitlin, like Caleb, like Rob Archuleta, Sheena Archuleta from Addict to Athlete, like the folks at the Phoenix, like the folks at Recovery Fitness. Like, let me put it this way. When I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, I had a really hard time, but I was with a group of people that pushed me to keep going up when I wanted to turn around. And they were like, you can continue to make it. So if you surround yourself with those types of people, you're going to make it, and you're going to have fun, and you're going to have a greater belief in yourself and your capabilities that grows exponentially over time. So I say, you have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain. So get out and live, because you have one life and you can't hit rewind. So live it today and make the most of it.
You about had me crying,
I'm
Tom.
telling you what, man, you
'Cause you
inspiring me. Like
Yeah, you start thinking about, and that's so true.
iron sharpens iron.
The things that you thought were so impossible, unimaginable, and then just going out and doing it. That's just.
There's more to life than just sitting in your, I encourage people all the time to be chasing their dreams, and if your dreams aren't scaring you, then they're not big enough,
Let me tell you one other funny thing. When I used to get drunk, I'm always like, I want to go to Dollywood. I want to go to Dollywood. But I never went to Dollywood, but I didn't have the money or the time or whatever, But like in sobriety, I went to Dollywood and I took my mom with me, and we had the absolute best time. So, again, I think this might resonate with some of you listeners out there. It's
Right.
like all the things you wanted to do, but you didn't do when you were
Right.
and because your drug or your alcohol was your priority, are now possible
Right.
for you to
Get
do.
out there and
Right.
do 'em. That's so cool.
What's that? Rob?
We have a visitor here.
We have a visitor.
Is that Robin?
Oh.
Shannon?
Shannon.
No, it's Shelly.
Shelley's here.
Shelley.
Oh, she
can come on in.
Let her on in. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You can move it
Yeah.
for now because the camera's on Tom. So come on in.
Can
You
we
mentioned
put that over here, Rob?
the camera.
Yeah. Like move that box on the table and put it right
I
here.
don't know if it'll get a good shot. I wanted to know. You were talking about how difficult it was to quit smoking.
Yep.
I want to know what type of techniques or approach you might
Good
have.
question. I'm really glad you asked me that. It's not, the answer is not going to be what anyone expects. But so here's the thing about the cigarettes. So when I started to realize that they had to go, I tried everything I could possibly do. I tried and I actually have a page on my website that talks about various smoking cessation try attempts that I made, and then also other people's experiences. So I tried the patch and I tried the gum, but the reality for me was those didn't break the desire for the nicotine, right? So it just kept me even wanting the nicotine more, and I started to really feel my heart, like I could feel the nicotine going in when I had the strong patches on. So I tried that. I tried Shantex. Shantex actually worked, but mentally I just wasn't there. And so I tried everything. I was ready to give up to smoking. And I came home one night. I'm like, this is going to kill me, because I was actually wheezing quite badly, like a city block or so. And I just happened to turn the TV on, and there was a documentary about Buddha's life narrated by Richard Gere on the PBS station. And I just started to watch it. And I didn't know that I didn't know his life story, that he was a prince.
Siddhartha.
Siddhartha. That he left the palace, he snuck out at night. And here's where it gets important, that he tried and failed for 6 years to find enlightenment in nirvana. So I was blown away by the story. It was a great documentary. And I said, you know something? Because I just figured Buddha got it just like that, right? But it really resonated with me, because even Buddha took 6 years to find enlightenment, but he didn't give up, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm not going to give up, because I was really close to giving up. And I said, let me just start following a little bit more what Buddha's teaching. So I started going, this was in August of the year I quit. I started going to morning yoga every morning at 7 a.m. And they have like a chanting and meditation portion of it. So 30 days into that, and then I would practice meditations at night, I was able to quit. I had my last cigarette 30 days after that documentary. And I continued to do daily yoga almost every day for a year, because it just helped me to breathe through it and make it easier. And it slowed my mind down, because I think that cigarettes, the desire to smoke comes from this impulsiveness that builds up, at least for me, over time. And also the foods. I wasn't eating, sugars and higher amounts of caffeine, which made it a lot easier. And that was it. And I think you should know this too. So I was so grateful to Buddha for his teachings that when I finished the book in 2015, I was so grateful, because when I started writing my book, I was smoking as I was writing it. I'm like, you're a hypocrite. You can't write a book about nutrition and exercise and recovery and be chain smoking as you're doing it. There's enough hypocrites. So I stopped writing the book until I quit. So I was so grateful to him when I finished the book in 2015 that I went to his birthplace in Lumbini, Nepal, and I brought a copy of the manuscript of the book. Yeah, and I went to the gate. It's known as the Renunciation Gate. It's the actual gate that he left through and what's left of the palace where he lived. I have a picture standing in the Renunciation Gate, and I look at that like I've renounced my old lifestyle. I'll never go back. And I left a copy at the spot where he was born. There's a sacred bathing pond. His mother was bathing in the pond. She went into labor, and she came out, and she had him under a Bodhi tree adjacent to the pond. And so people leave offerings there to him. So I took the original manuscript for the book to Lumbini, and I left it as an offering, and it was burned at the end of the day. Here's it gets better. So I said to myself when I was in Lumbini in 2015 that if I'm ever successful to have the book published and sold, that I would come back and leave an actual copy of the book. Lumbini was his physical birthplace. His spiritual birthplace is Bodh Gaya, okay, in India. That's where he actually was under the Bodhi tree and where he attained enlightenment and nirvana. So I went in October of this year on the way to climb up to the Mount Everest base camp. I went to Bodh Gaya with an actual copy of the book. And I sat in the exact spot and meditated in the exact spot where it's over 2,500 years ago. It's the most sacred place to Buddhists in the world. And I left a copy of the final manuscript under, it's not the same tree because it was very long ago, but it's a sapling of the original tree. And I was under there meditating, and it was amazing. And so I left the book, Spiritual Adrenaline, under that tree as an offering, and it was burned again at the end of the day and prayed on by the Buddhist monks. But that's how grateful I am to Buddha. And I just, whether it's Buddha or whether it's Catholicism or whether it's Judaism, the teachings are really, you want to know the truth? Almost all the same. Mm-hmm. But where Buddhism helped me was slowing down my brain. But they call it the monkey mind. That's a huge component of quitting smoking.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
I don't even know what to say to that. That's awesome, Tom.
You're speaking my language, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rob's all about some.
I just hope that people out there listening to this, so I've done these things, with Everest and Bodhi Gaya. He's run 777 miles. She's run a long portion of that. They're going on the Pacific Coast Highway. Okay. Being sober is not boring. No. It's not the end of your life. It's fun if you make it fun.
That's right.
If you want to be miserable, you'll find people in the program that are miserable. But if you want to have fun, it is there. It's up to you to avail yourself. You have to step out of your comfort zone that if you're not happy there, and challenge yourself and meet people like this.
We're always talking about whoever you're attached to, their values will eventually become your values.
Absolutely.
Their spirit's going to get into your spirit and everything. And I think that's so important to make sure you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people, or you're surrounding yourself with people that you want to strive to be like, and that's doing big things like that. And, it does take a lot of, you're going to go through some discomfort and everything. So,
I don't know about you guys. You want to say something, Caitlin, or?
No, I completely agree with everything that you guys say.
I think that's an important message, though, for people. I think one of my big problems was, again, remember I said earlier I wanted to fit in. I wanted everyone to like me, and then my attitude changed to fitting out. I was a big people pleaser.
Oh, yeah.
And
I was
when
too.
people would say to me,
too.
like, come do this, I knew it wasn't good for me, and I knew it wasn't going to be a positive thing, but I didn't know I could say no. I mean, I knew I could say no, but I didn't have the strength to say no. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a consistent but behavior or attribute of a lot of people in recovery. And now to be able to say no,
right,
doing that, what do you go do it. It's fine, but it's a big thing. It's a big thing. And sometimes I still struggle with it,
Whenever I was in high school, that was a big thing for me. Is why I got hooked on drugs, is because I was trying to fit in. I didn't understand it already fit in. I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't created to be.
I think that's huge, too, to focus on that point for a minute, especially for the listeners. If we have any youth listening, because I think a lot of times that was my thing in high school, too, was trying to fit in with the older crowd and be that person that stands out. You don't have to fit in. I mean, I'd rather be, who I am today, trailblazing, setting the path, surrounding myself with eagles or lions.
But especially like I may say something, and I mean I was looking at. We went around today. We went to an outpatient treatment facility, and we spoke to some people there. Went to the criminal justice court this afternoon to just watch a very short hearing. You see, the thing is, your community needs heroes. Mm-hmm. I was stunned when I read the statistics on the health issues here within the Cherokee community on heart disease, type 2 diabetes, domestic violence, so many societal ills that you have anywhere else, but they're exacerbated here in this area. And I really feel for communities like that. And I mean, and I think, quite frankly, people like you are really setting. This is a whole different way of thinking.
Hope dealers.
Hope dealers. I like that. I like that. I like that.
That, and you're cultivating new leaders. Like
Yeah.
you stepped up to the plate 1.5, 2 years ago, yet you're creating that sense of community in this world of recovery.
Talk about res hope.
That's exactly
please.
what. That's what.
Yeah, that was one thing that we talked about on. We had a lot of what do we call them? The lion talks.
Yeah.
Well, we was on the run to Oklahoma because we had so much road. We were talking.
I'm telling you what, now we had some spiritual downloads on that trip. It was awesome. Just the stuff that was given to us.
You guys are made for each other.
Res Hope being one of them. We're like, what are we gonna do when we get back? And that was one thing that we talked about was we didn't want to just start another support group that shared and which
Talks
is
about the
great to talk
problem.
about reflecting and all that. All that's important, but at the same time, we wanted to build leaders. We wanted to inspire people, and that's exactly what we're doing.
I serve a God that gives he gives what's the word I'm looking for? The phrase I'm looking for. The pain that I experience, he's going to use it for his purpose. And so that's what we try to get people to step out of their comfort zones, to share their stories, but not only that, to go out and to be, a hope dealer, to be a difference maker in their community. And that's the vision that we have for Res Hope, is to do these physical endeavors. Like if Jose goes with us, when he goes with us, and when he completes this, I want him to come back. And, he's got a group that he's a part of, and we want him to inspire that hope and change and, just go and build people up and get them to pour back into the community.
Right. Like us going by, like the class today, they know Res Hope's there and we love them. But what I was really excited about is the fact that they get to see what we're doing. There ain't nothing stopping anyone that was in there today from doing the same thing. Get out there and start get out there and do whatever your dream is, that vision board, get it going. And we're here. We want to help. Like, we don't want to keep it to ourselves. We want to help other communities, other, counties.
You can't keep it unless you give it away.
Right.
That's what they say.
And that's what, when we do that outreach, when we go to other communities, that's the biggest thing, like for Res Hope. I mean, the recovery house is coming. It's coming. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, we're on a really good pathway. Our board's coming together. Things are falling into place, and it's just like, the outreach and everything that we do is so important to the things that we stand for, especially with building leader, like pouring ourselves into other people.
It's not just about getting people, into recovery and substance free. It's about building that leadership and having them go back out and do the same thing.
And creating those communities, just like the active sober community, being able to get on there and just share who you are and talk about, what's going on around us. I mean, it's all good stuff, especially NC Raw, This is trailblazing.
It is.
I was going to give you a compliment. Look at this setup he has here. And it's amazing that you are so mobile you can go anywhere and do and carry the message. And it's just thank you for letting us share the message today.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate you being here, and that's really credit to the audience and to our former producer Courtney, who taught me how to use all this equipment, because I had no idea what I was doing when I started. It looks nice, Tom, but don't let me fool you, okay? I'm learning as we go, doing all those things that you guys are just talking about. What can someone expect from the event tomorrow?
Okay, so tomorrow we have what's called our day one event. It's in Bryson City at CrossFit 2232. It's in conjunction with JAMA
Shout out
and
Jama
Amy Anders
Amy.
and their family, as well as with Res Hope, Caitlin, Caleb, Jose, Shelly, and a whole bunch of other people that have really been amazingly helpful. So I'm going to be going around the country. I'm starting here, but when I leave North Carolina, I'm going to Colorado. I'm going to Addict. The organization there is Addict to Athlete. They've been around since 2006, I believe. And so I'll be going to other states and other cities around the country as well, and then to Europe later on this year. But I wanted to start here because this guy ran 777 miles, and it just blows me away. And so here's what people can expect, okay? We're hoping to have a turnout of lots of local people from the community. We're really trying to encourage people who are in recovery. They don't have to be in addiction recovery. They can be in shopping recovery, gambling recovery, ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend recovery. It is what it is. But
Recovery allies.
Recovery allies, people who are interested and, again, stepping out of their comfort zone and joining us for a very, very basic beginner's CrossFit class. I've never done an actual CrossFit class.
I haven't either.
So
Caitlin
I
has.
jumped into one, but I was told I better do the beginning.
So if you're listening, you've never done CrossFit before, you're going to be in good company. And that's the idea. We want beginners and people who are interested in maybe changing up their lifestyle to feel comfortable there. So we'll have a beginner's CrossFit class, some stretching. We're going to do a walk around the block where the only requirement is everyone has to go up to the people around them and introduce themselves and say hi and get to know each other.
And tell each other they're amazing.
Tell each other they're amazing. You know, the statistics show, because isolation is a huge part of recovery, of active addiction. Statistics show that people who work out in groups or have other kind of group commitments at meetings or whatever tend to have lower relapse rates because they become part of something. They're not isolating by themselves. So we want them to come out. And then I'm going to give a little of my spiel. You're hearing a lot of it here on the importance and the science behind exercise and nutrition science and how it can benefit people in addiction recovery. I'm going to do a little bit of a presentation on the local aspects of this, since we're here in North Carolina, on the high rates of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and other illnesses in this community, and how they're interrelated with substance abuse and also poor nutrition. And then we have this bean bread dessert that we came up with. I came up with. I'll take if it's good, I'll take all the credit, and if it's bad, it's Caleb and Caleb.
So my mom,
she
has some real bean bread that she wants.
I want to try it.
Yeah.
So we came up with a very healthy bean bread dessert. And what I did is I took the traditional bean bread recipe. I took the lard out, replaced it with extra virgin olive oil. I took out the refined sugars and replaced them with honey and Truvia and other natural sweeteners. So I added some raisins in, and it's got like sunflower seeds, sesame seeds. It's got a lot of good stuff. So the point is, it's a healthy snack. It's also good, low on the glycemic load index. So it's not something for people who have blood sugar issues, either type 2 diabetes, hypoglycemia, or something else. It's low on the glycemic load index. So this is something that's actually not bad for them to eat, okay? And so we'll have a little bit of a sampling of that. And then I'm hoping people will buy my book tomorrow. It's $17.95. It'll fund the money. I've been, supporting the entire expense of the blog and everything we've been doing for the last 3 years, and it's been very substantial. So this is money that when you buy the book, you're allowing me to continue to go around the country to help people like Caleb and Caitlin, get attention to what they're doing. I've been promoting them quite a bit, and other local individuals and organizations. So I hope people buy my book, and they get a shot with us as well. Yeah. And he's a chapter inspiration. We'll sign it for you, and I think it'll be
I've been working on mine.
Oh, you're working on your signature?
I haven't been. The sloppier, the more important, right?
You've been talking about that for 6 months. Right?
But it's going to be great. And, he deserves it because I just think it's important. One of the things about, let me be really honest here. Okay. So when I started the Spiritual Adrenaline blog and website, I started telling the stories about other people, a lot of people said to me, you should promote yourself because that's what you should be doing because you want people to buy the book. But the reality is I wanted to create a platform that was more about the movement. There's a whole movement happening of people all over the world. I mean, I get every day, and I'm not exaggerating, I get emails or messages on Facebook from people in Ireland, Canada, the United States, the Middle East, Africa. I mean, it's like it blows my mind, right? And so there's a whole movement of people that I wanted to connect, and they're connecting now. And I'm thinking a couple of years out, we can have a conference where all these organizations and
Now you're
individuals
talking,
come together. I already have a name for it. I call it the Outside Issues Conference. So, you know, but what I'm trying to say is, you know, people will say you should promote yourself. I think the greatest self-promotion is promoting like the community of like-minded people, because I think it's the strength in numbers. If it was just me out there doing whatever I'm doing, it's only a little drop in the bucket. But when you put us all together and you can see the different types of exercises and different approaches taken, this is not, and my book's not, a one-size-fits-all solution. It can be modified based on your health history, your present health, and your long-term goals. And that's what I like about integrating all these different organizations and working with people. We all do it differently, but we all get to the same place.
Right.
You know, we have the same end goal.
I wanted to talk about. I had been promoting the event that we'll be sharing some fitness and nutritional goals. Is that safe
Sure.
to say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't giving misinformation out there. There's some questions here, Tom. Janae. She said,
Hey, girl.
The amazing Janae.
Hey, girl.
She said, hang on a second.
She was asking about smoking.
Yeah, how
right?
many days after y'all quit did the cravings go away?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I can't remember the exact date. It takes a while. It takes a long time because it's such an ingrained thing up here, and like behaviors are so associated with it, like the way I would leave a building so I could have the cigarette, everything. So the cravings stayed, but I do think for me, reaching the 30-day threshold and not smelling like cigarettes anymore, and actually I started to breathe a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I had a lot more energy. So I had the cravings, but I wasn't willing to go back and mess my lungs up again. So I think that's what I would recommend. But whether you get a craving or not, the reality is, as Buddha taught us, imagine he had just for 5.5 years tried and then gave up and said, I'm going to go back to the palace and be the prince.
You'd still be smoking.
I'd tell you, still be smoking, right? So I think the message from Buddha's lifestyle and his life story is don't give up. You just keep going until you find what works for you, you know? And I think but smoking is the most insidious because it's just so common. You see it everywhere. It's not like people are out there doing lines on the street, right? Like, I was a big cokehead, you know, but anywhere you walk, you see people smoking cigarettes. So it's very, very hard.
How did you get turned on to Buddhism and meditation?
Well, I watched that documentary. That was it. And then what I like about it, because I don't really see it as like, I consider myself an Episcopalian who likes Buddhist teaching. And so, you know, what's so great about Buddhist teaching is just the practicality of it. It's not really a religion in the sense there's no God you worship and you don't worship Buddha. The concept behind Buddhism is our own thinking is the prime cause of the majority of our suffering. So how can I think differently to not cause myself so much suffering, but rather cause myself happiness? So it's like, you know, and there's like, let me give you one example. It's called the Supreme Teacher concept in Buddhism. And, you know, to give you an example, the Dalai Lama considers the Chinese his supreme teacher. And that's because they invaded Tibet. They have done terrible things to the Tibetans. But, you know, he says that they also have taught me humility. They've taught me that even as the Dalai Lama, you know, I am not the highest, you know, religious power on the planet, and that they teach me things that make me a better person, and I feel for them, you know. And what he's trying to say is if you can learn from the things that bring you the unhappiness, and you can find a way to live with it that causes yourself a lot less suffering, you know. So I often think like of my drug dealers as my supreme teacher.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You know, they taught me. And then there's one particular lawyer I work with in New York, who is absolutely impossible. And everything, I'm an attorney, this is my hobby. So everything is a major fight. And, you know, that person teaches me that I'm very grateful that that's the only person I have to deal with like that. But that, you know, I have to find a way to deal with them in a way that doesn't damage me, right? And I'm not going to act out and do something that takes me out of my own comfort zone and my own belief that I should treat people with, you know, respect and as nicely as I possibly can.
Yeah, the whole like love your enemies, right? And what is the most appropriate
Got a lot of living to do.
response, the most compassionate, most kind.
It's the same, yeah, yeah, same thing.
You familiar with refuge recovery? You
Of
heard
course,
it,
yeah,
right?
sure. Noah Levine. I've read
Yeah.
all of his books.
Have you? Cool. I found recovery through refuge recovery.
Oh, good for you.
I have been involved with that fellowship since 2014, since day one.
I didn't know
never
this. Oh,
never
great.
stepped foot in a 12-step meeting until last night. And you know that the meditation aspect in combination with like the sangha, the fellowship, the community, definitely contributed to my sustainability and
I go to
yeah.
refuge recovery meetings in New
Yeah.
York, and I think they're great. I'm a huge fan of the program. I've read all of his. I've read Against the Stream. I've read Refuge Recovery, and I this is something about Buddhism that works perfectly. And you know, can I say one thing? In this day and age, like technology is the biggest impediment to spiritual connection. And I write about this in my chapter on spirituality. Like, I think airplane mode is a great spiritual tool because you can cut yourself off from this continuous, nonstop being bombarded by social media, by text. It all takes you out of where you are.
Disconnect.
And yeah, it disconnects you. And you know, Buddhism teaches you to bring it back to the breath. You know this. It bring it back to you. And by refocusing yourself internally as opposed to a focus on the external sources of whatever's going on around you, it's a really empowering way to think and to live. And so that's huge. It's a huge part of Buddhism.
As far as technology goes, I think that I'm really fascinated with the capabilities. Like, I think that we're using it in the wrong way. And I'm like fascinated in like figuring out, like this podcast has really like gained my interest in like figuring out, and you're doing it with the spiritual adrenaline community, is to how to use it in the healthiest way, how to use it to touch more lives, how to use it to build that sense of community, how to connect with the kid across the holler that doesn't have a Res Hope in his backyard, or that doesn't have a strong recovery community for him to turn to. How do we use it in the healthiest way? Because it's only going to continue to grow, right? Like, there's who knows what's next, right? Like 50 years from now, we'll be able to communicate without a phone, right? Because like, yeah, seriously, like, you know, but like it's coming. So how do we use it to our advantage to promote recovery, to continue to grow in faith and fellowship, you know? I don't know what the answer is. It's just something I think about all the time.
What you're doing, though, is a good example. I mean, this is a very positive use of technology for a positive purpose. You know, Anderson Cooper did a story on 60 Minutes about how programs and apps are being designed to try and maximize the endorphin rush and the dopamine that's created.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And so, like, you know, that can be good or bad, right? It can be good or bad because that's what keeps people tied to their devices.
phone,
So, you know, there's like everything in life, we all have to make choices, right? And how we choose to use it, what apps we use. And I think it's great that, like, I'm just stunned by the setup you have here and how you're so mobile with this. When I've watched your show before, I kind of thought it was in one studio or someplace.
Sometimes
normally in one.
Yeah. So, but this is a great way to take it on the road and be able to talk to people.
We're going to be taking it on the road.
We're cranking it up in 2019.
Are you running too on the Pacific?
He's our
all the way
media. He's our
up.
PR
Yeah.
guy. Rob's our PR guy.
I'm driving.
Driving and PR.
Yeah. Driving and documenting.
That's great.
We're actually
can drive
going to
a little bit now.
Oh yeah, let's go ahead
legally.
and cover that.
You
topic.
ain't driving. You're running or riding a bike.
Man.
Rob's going to be reaching out to Joe Rogan. So we hope
that's great.
to whenever we get to Southern California, we hope to be able on Joe Rogan's podcast.
I do want to point this out real quick because you just made me think of it. Like, I know y'all talking about technology and everything, and just like David Goggins' book, how his new book, the audio book he came out with.
Can't hurt me. You got to get it, Tom.
You have to listen to it. Like, it's so much better, and you get so much more out of it to hear the audio book than if you was to.
They have a podcast.
Like.
Yeah, so this is what I was actually going to ask you this question. Do you plan to record an audio?
It's already done.
It's already done.
You can you can buy my book in audio version.
I bought the I ordered it on Kindle, and I didn't see the audio book.
Oh yeah, we have a Kindle version and an audio.
Okay.
Let me tell you the funny thing about the audio. So like 3 or 4 months ago, my publisher sends me an email with multiple audio files, and it's different people who are auditioned for the book.
Yeah.
And now I know I talk funny because I grew up on Staten Island in New York City. I know I have an accent. One of the guys sounded like The Sopranos.
She got me on there to do it.
Oh my God! I was actually
guy.
my mom, my sister, and I were listening to them, and we had to pick, which one we wanted to be the audio, and we were just laughing so hard.
How do you pronounce your mom's name?
Molly.
Molly.
So
We love you. Shout out.
So
she's
my mother
amazing.
says to me, she goes, well, why do they need to hire someone to do it? Why can't you read the book? I said, that's what everyone's mother says. just pick
Your
from
mom
the,
would
from,
say
from
that
the options
for
we
sure.
gave. Hi, Mom, I love you. But anyway, yeah. So you can buy it. I saw it on the Central Recovery site.
Okay.
I don't on Amazon. I'm not sure, but definitely on Central Recovery's website they have it now. So.
What I like to do is I like to listen to audiobooks, and I buy all my books on Kindle and then use the Audible and kind of go back and forth. And I like to read the digital books. So I like to take notes and highlight stuff right on it.
Let me just say, it's interesting that you say all that because I love paper books.
Yeah.
Like every book I read, I date when I'm reading it so that I can go back. Like Refuge Recovery has a date. And then every important page I'll underline and make notes on the actual pages. And then up in the cover, I put I have 5 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, and I write the topics in the front. So like a lot of the research for my book started that way from reading other books, and I'm able to go back and find the material that I want. Yeah. But it's like, that's why I listen to audiobooks at the gym. Sometimes I'll do that, inspirational ones. Cause I like that, but I love the old-fashioned paper.
I'll get the audiobook first, and then if I really get into it, I'll buy the Kindle version, and then I'll finish the book. And if it's just like killer 5 stars, I have to have it, then I'll turn it on.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Then I end up owning 3 copies of it. Right?
But let me say one thing about it. That's good because I always buy the books to support the authors that I believe in. Because I'm telling you right now, if people don't do that, it's getting harder and harder in the publishing industry. Because people go other places or get it other means. But I have an apartment full of the books that I love, and I love buying them because it supports the authors and encourages the message.
What's your favorite inspirational book?
Ooh, good question.
The Yoga Sutras.
The what?
It will blow your mind. The Yoga Sutras. I mean, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. It's just unbelievable.
What is it?
The Yoga Sutras?
Yeah.
It's a required reading if you go to yoga teacher training, and these are ancient passages, and these sutras deal with issues in life that come up along the way, kind of, and how to handle them, and it's beautiful. That's all I can say. It's amazingly beautiful, and it touches on all different aspects of life and issues in life. My other favorite, because I have a couple, so I'm going to keep going. All right, is the Recovery Bible. I sent Caleb a copy of that.
The
Life Recovery Bible, which is the Bible. I love that book. The Bible annotated to the 12 steps.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I am telling you, if you don't want to read the whole Bible, which I did, read the footnotes, and you will get a whole new idea of what the Bible is about. I absolutely
You've read the whole
love
Bible?
that book. Well, because I went to church.
I better step it up.
I went to church, and it was true. The Father's Mass was about how people were out criticizing the Bible and Catholic or Christian teaching when they hadn't ever read it. And then I would go to these 12-step meetings where everyone was like, God sucks. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And, if you ask any of those people if they actually read the Bible, I guarantee you the vast majority haven't, because in the Bible,
Right.
almost every major character, not really character, but person, was a flawed person
Yeah.
who overcame whatever the issue was and found redemption. Like that's a very positive message. It's not full of hate. It's
a
not
love
full of all
story.
these things. So, that's why I think it was really important to go and to do that. And I read the Life Recovery Bible, so that's a great book.
Thanks, Tom.
I'm going to get you the audio version.
Coming
So
on here
when
straight.
you're running down the Pacific Coast Highway, and then what we're going to do is we're going to rent some billboards along the way, and we're going to have Caleb, are you listening to your Bible as you run?
That's funny.
What is it, Rob? You looking at
No,
me?
yeah, I'm in it. I'll throw in some dollars for those billboards. I will throw down some dollars for
Oh,
those
my
billboards.
God. See, Caleb, we're stepping it up for you, brother.
I know it. I appreciate
We're
that.
going to make the Trail of Tears look like a walk in the
Oh
park.
yeah, this is doubling the Trail of Tears.
You gonna come out for a little bit of this?
If I can, because
Okay.
the thing is, this year it's a big year
Yeah,
because of
with
the
the
book
book.
release. Yeah, and so we had the first quarters already laid out in the context of where I'm going to be going and what I'm going to be doing. But the second quarter, third quarter, we're not sure yet. So that's why if I can be out there, I definitely will.
Well, we'll
be
be
out
Where
there.
are you
starting
going to
like-
be in April?
Well, we don't know yet. The second quarter. So yeah, I don't know
We're
yet.
having our wedding in April.
I think I'm going to be at your wedding in April. No, I definitely would try and come down for that if I can. Yeah.
I'm gonna do my best to make it.
What? Yeah.
Man.
Just kidding, man.
Okay.
Just kidding.
You're going to be there to catch the bouquet.
Leave-
Knocking the
Do we have
ladies
any more
down.
questions?
We're
I'd
gonna
love
leave
to
Bianca
hear-
at home.
Ooh,
Oh yeah,
shit.
wait.
What you got?
Go ahead.
I'm just curious if you have any more questions from any
I
of
just
them.
had a brain fart. Go ahead.
Questions for you?
Yeah, any questions from people who are
Oh,
listening out
tuned
there?
in. I'll have them looking.
I haven't
No,
looked
I
at
haven't
that.
looked
Um,
either.
What's next? Like after this book comes out, like how do you? What's on your radar? What's your? You opened the show up talking about goals, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm really focused on this book. And quite
Uh-huh.
frankly, I hope that the book is embraced in the way I think it will be because I think it's long overdue. I think Rob Archuleta from Addict to Athletes endorsement says, it's a look at the future of recovery today. It's a holistic view of recovery.
Mhm.
But one of the questions I was asked recently was, you do male physique bodybuilding competition. So is this a book for bodybuilders? And it's absolutely not. It's actually a very basic book that anybody can use. So it's not sophisticated. I'd like to do a Spiritual Adrenaline Phase 2. I started researching that in late 2016, 2017. What the second book is about is it builds on the first book because the reason is, like when you work 12 steps, you don't just do it once and stop. You continuously work them and you integrate them into your lifestyle. And as you work them and you change, they change, right? So anyone who reads this book, if they actually utilize the tools that are in this book, basic stuff, they will be a very different person 6 to 8 months to 12 months from now, and they're going to want more. I know that. So the next, if I'm fortunate enough to sell it and to have it published, is Phase 2 deals with the enzymes that are in foods and how the enzymes both in foods and the enzymes that can be created in the body through exercise and nutrition impact health overall, but specifically for people in addiction recovery. And I'll give you a good example. I was listening to a podcast. I'm not going to say who it was, but it's a very well-known person in the recovery community talk about green juicing recently, right? And I'm not really for juicing at all. I explain why in the book, but they were talking about green juicing in the context of the minerals and other vitamins that people can get from green juicing. If you're having that discussion with a healthy person, there's no need to concern yourself, okay? But if you're dealing with someone in addiction recovery, like we were talking earlier about potassium, Caitlin, okay, if you come into addiction recovery and you have compromised liver function or pancreas function or kidney function, you want to know what minerals and other nutrients are in the green juices you're drinking, okay? Because your body may not be able to digest them properly, okay? There was no discussion whatsoever of that on this podcast. Another thing that concerns me greatly and no one's really covered or written about is how we talked about this privately earlier, how ketogenic diets can impact a body of someone who's in addiction recovery based upon their using history and their current health history. I mean, there's issues with the breakdown of the oil. It relates to the body's ability to build up bile to break down oils in the system. And so also I just don't think anyone who's new to recovery or new to eating right should be on a ketogenic diet. What you should focus on, as we focus on in my book, is bringing in antioxidants into your system, cleansing the body, giving your body the nutrients it needs, and then talking about more sophisticated diet and nutrition steps. So the second book would focus more, like I say, on how to maximize hormone production in your body based upon the foods that you're eating, the enzymes in the foods, and your exercise regimen and spiritual regimen. So that's what I'm hoping to do down the line.
We had a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I had a discussion about healthy sugars. And we was told that you can eat as many fruits as you would like.
Who told you that? Think about that. You know, fruits are made of, there's two different types of sugars in fruits. There's fructose and there's sucrose, okay? Mm-hmm. The problem with that logic is, especially, see, when we're talking about people in addiction recovery, and we went through this a bunch of times, type 2 diabetes is the majority of the people, whether they admit it or not, in addiction recovery when they present at inpatient facilities, and it probably is a substantial number of people in the recovery community. Fruit is pure sugar, right? So if you're eating it in moderation, if you're having an apple a day, you don't need to worry. If you're eating a banana, an apple, you're really continuously all day eating all this. You're eating huge amounts of sugar. And no, there's like someone I know, nameless. No, it's not you either. Years ago,
it's me.
Was wanting to get into shape, and he's someone I know from recovery, and he posted a picture on Facebook, and it was like bananas, strawberries, blueberries, all kinds of berries, and watermelon. Everything he put on there was sugar. And it's not my place to reach out to people on Facebook and say, excuse me, I don't do that. So, but I noticed it. But here's what people need to understand. I'm not being critical. We have to start to think about the substances in the food we're eating and why we're eating. Why do we crave comfort foods? Why don't I crave broccoli, right? Right?
Right.
There's a chemical reason for that. Because the comfort foods, the sugars, the glucose, the fructose.
Crave broccoli, cauliflower.
If you crave broccoli, I'd be like, what? No, but so we crave certain things for a reason. And it's true that fruits, people have that same kind of a thing with fruit because of all the sugar in there. So the reality is you have to really start to understand. I think in our society, generally speaking, and I think in recovery to some extent, we use food for emotional reasons, and we use food, for other reasons that have nothing to do with the nutrients in the food and the reason God gave us food. I used to do it a lot. I still do it. When I'm really pissed off, I eat at it. You know, I get a big double cheeseburger with a big thing of fries, and I put cheese sauce on it. Yeah. So I'm not saying I'm like perfect.
When's the last time you done that?
The last time I did that, after I competed.
Okay.
My last competition in September. But so what I'm trying to say though is I try not to use food to cover up my emotions or my anger or other things. And a basic thing about being healthy is understanding what nutrients are in the food. Anyone who told you could eat as much fruit as you want is, with all due respect, completely wrong.
I think I'm gonna go back to eating my M&M cookie ice cream sandwiches for breakfast.
Tell that story. Tell that story. We was talking about that on the way home.
I was just telling Caleb because
sounds good, actually.
You had talked about, like being on that. You're on that high.
Crash,
you're on that high, and then when you're coming down, you have that crash. And a lot of times, like, I found myself. That's what if I didn't have anything, or even when I did, really, but. A lot of times when I didn't have anything, I was on that crash, I was going in the stores stealing candy bars or sweet cakes, trying to get myself back up, some kind of rush back up. Allegedly, no. No, but that's part of my life that we're past. No, but no, I did do that.
It's good to be able to laugh about that, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Isn't it?
So I do. I make a joke out of it, but that's the truth of the matter. And then there was like, whenever I was using, every morning I would go to the store as soon as I got up, and that was my breakfast, was the ice cream cookie the M&M cookie sandwiches. I would get that, a Pepsi, and a pack of Marlboro cigarettes, Marlboro menthol cigarettes, and
that was nutrition.
That
When we were talking, you want to say something? What we were talking about is, earlier, we went to an outpatient facility, and with part of the discussion, I was talking about how I started to realize in early recovery that I used to eat to raise my blood sugar up, like lots and lots of sweets and lots of caffeine to get myself hyped up, and then I would crash, and I go right back looking for more caffeine and sugar. And the epiphany, the light bulb was, I'm getting high and crashing in a very similar way as I was when I was doing drugs and alcohol, and I started to really realize that. And that was a big light bulb moment for me. Like, it's not okay.
Same behavior,
all
different
those
jabs.
bananas
Looking
over
at
there.
Rob's always got some good healthy snacks, so
Sometimes.
most of the time.
I was telling Caleb a story that I heard about you with a mushroom burger. Do you remember that?
Oh my gosh! When Bianca spilled her drink, yes, that was funny. We had got mushroom burgers, and this was back when I was like 205 pounds. Fresh. Like I said, that was what we did, was our hanging out, was going out to eat. But anyways, we ordered these mushroom burgers, thinking we were gonna get these burgers and a big old mushroom. They bring it out, it's like bread, lettuce, a big flat mushroom. And so I'm like, what is this? I don't want this. Yeah.
I just remembered something. You asked me when the last time I ate at something was. Yesterday, I got here and there was a problem with my hotel, and then I couldn't get any cell service on my phone to call anybody. And I passed Dairy Queen. I was like, I'm going to Dairy Queen. I drove into the Dairy Queen in downtown Cherokee, and I went in and I looked at the board and I was like, I'm not doing this. And I walked out, but I came really close to like getting the double burger and
We
the
do
fries.
that all the time. Like, we looking around, looking at all the foods and
God.
sweets. I'm just like, man.
But it's just
doing?
not worth it,
No.
It's just not worth it. Once in
But
a
I'm
while.
glad you shared that about the fruit, though, really, because, like, I work in a food place, and so that's what I snack on is fruit. My thinking was like, well, it's fruit. It's okay, but I probably shouldn't be slamming 3 bananas.
Well, yeah,
I
that-
don't
and that's
do
what-
that,
bananas
but-
have the most.
Yeah.
So much sugar.
And that's what started the conversation, was that, like, we're always on the go, right? And so we were asking for like healthy alternatives to like eat on the go. Like, I have my bag over there, and I always have like some Cliff Bars. I always have a couple bananas, some carrots, and the almond
Can
butter.
I just say something now? That's very
Well,
interesting.
hold on, real
You know
quick.
that everything you mentioned just has a lot of sugar.
A lot, I know. Everything.
Including the
like-
carrots.
So
Do they?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
All of it
The
does.
Cliff Bars, they have a lot
A ton of
I mean,
sugar.
they're for
And so I was in
endurance
class,
things.
and all I had was like a couple bananas left, and I
Right.
literally just pounded like 4 bananas because I was starving in school.
I get
And
it.
I had
I
like
get it. I
it was
get
either that or like hit the vending machine and grab Doritos, and so I just pounded the bananas. And my teacher was like, my instructor, my professor, she was like, I can't believe that you just ate 4 bananas. You're gonna be bouncing off the walls and then crash. And I was like, what am I supposed to do?
Right,
Like,
right, right.
So like, what are some healthy alternatives to eat on the go?
Well, it's funny you asked that. Okay, so in my book, I have a 7-day plan, a 30-day plan, and then maintenance plans. And I don't just say this is what you have to eat. I give you options. Okay. And in the book, I teach you what are good snacks, what are good main meals, what can be prepared ahead of time. For example, this morning before we worked out here at this gym, yesterday, instead of going to the fast food place or whatever, I went to the supermarket and I got boiled eggs. I got a fully cooked chicken. I got some, not that I'm crazy about eating this, but I got ham and turkey cold cuts as well, like high protein sources, sweet potatoes and yogurt, right? And then at my hotel last night, I prepped everything into containers and I brought it this morning. So we had, after working out, we had fresh sweet potato, and Caitlin and Caleb shared it with me. We had fresh sweet potato, which is great for
It was
sustainable energy.
Amazing.
Sustainable energy. If you want sustainable energy, there it is. If you want to build muscle after a workout, you mix. We had sweet potato. I had the eggs with me, and I had the turkey with me, and then I had the yogurt out in the car, and I had almonds with me as well. So I teach you, and I don't just say, "Here's what you should eat." I teach you what's in it. Like I have a whole section called Recovery Superfoods. I list the food. I list the substances that are in the food. And then I list the benefits for you. So in other words, it makes it so easy. Because I've always read, you should eat this, but no one tells me why, right? Well, I don't understand what's in it. So I broke it down by food, substances in it, the benefits. So it makes it very, very easy to be able to manage that and learn how to prepare your own food, which will save you a lot of money and also get you into a better health position. And the other thing that I teach you in my book is the importance of nutrient timing. What times, like I have something in the book called FAB, Eat Fab. It stands for fuel, F is for fuel, A is for active, and B is for build, okay? So certain foods, like in the morning, you want to eat for fuel, right? In the afternoon, you want to eat to stay active. And at night, you want to eat so that you're building as your body's sleep, as you sleep, so you can regenerate.
Is that something you created?
That's something I created.
That acronym?
Yeah.
I love that.
Because that's just how I eat. So like I don't just eat what I want to eat, whenever I want to eat it. There's thought that goes into it. Like, okay, is it gonna give me fuel? Is it gonna keep me active, or is it gonna help me build? Like, and that way, when you start to really think that way, it makes it so much easier. Because if you're eating a carb, 4 bananas, right? Like, whatever it is. And you're eating it late in the day, and then you go to bed. First of all, you're going to have a hard time going to sleep. Second of all, it converts to fat when you sleep. Like people who have these large pasta dinners late at night or whatever, something with a lot of, not really complex carbs, but cheap carbs, that you wake up and it's all converts to fat because you're not burning it. But you're also telling your body, you're sending the wrong signal to your body. You should be eating those carbs for fuel in the morning, right? Not late at night to go to bed. And so your body's confused. It doesn't really understand why you're pumping it up. Like you carb load before you run.
Mm-hmm.
People, I mean, it's crazy, but they carb load before they go to bed.
Yeah.
Think about that. It
Yeah.
makes no sense. And then they wake up bigger than they were, and they're unhappy. And by the way, there's a really good book out there called Zero Calorie Foods. They're foods that, I'm trying to remember if carrots are in the book, foods that takes more energy to burn than the calories it has in it. So if you eat those, and many of them are in my book, is the build foods, the building, the FAB, the B part foods. Those foods actually take more energy to break down than the calories they have. So your body will burn. You'll wake up lighter in the morning because of all the work.
You said it would build your metabolism, right?
Right.
There's a girl that you're going to get to meet at the event tomorrow, Tom. I ain't gonna say her name yet, but anyway, she was telling me that she got into recovery and she blew up. She was well over 200 pounds, and that caused her to have a relapse, a return to use.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
I mean, I don't know her specific situation, but I think that
the diet on fitness and nutrition and
all the research shows
sustainable return.
And I should mention this on the podcast. When I was in early recovery and I was reading self-published books, like there's this book, The Vitamin Cure. Like what's interesting about those books is they have all these conclusions, but they don't have any of the science to support the conclusions. It's basically the author's point of view. And for me, later I found out much of it was not accurate or really helpful. And I think that that's not what the kind of book I wanted to write. So my book is evidence-based. I have chapter notes and chapter citations to peer-reviewed studies at credible institutions that support the conclusions in my book. There's over 250 chapter citations. So if anyone challenges anything that's in my book, go look at the study and show me where I'm wrong. And by the way, in the 3 years that I've been live, every week putting out new material on nutrition and exercise, no one's ever said I made a mistake on anything because everything I do is evidence-based, right? And so, okay, so it's important. I'm getting tired now. Why did I get into that? Talk about brain fart.
We was talking about
returning to use.
Yes, returning to use.
Oh, okay, thank you. Because I'm getting tired. Okay, so here's what those studies, and these are peer-reviewed studies, say. The evidence shows. Let me give you an example of one of the studies. They took a group of people who were in an inpatient rehab setting. They measured the cravings using MRIs and other kinds of technology of those people over a couple of weeks. One group exercised, I think it was 5 to 15 minutes a day. The middle group did less exercise, just very de minimis walking. The first group was doing 5 to 15 minutes of active workout a day. The middle group was doing de minimis walking. Third group did no exercise whatsoever, just went to traditional psychological counseling, right, at the facility. The group that did the most exercise had, after they tracked these people over time, had lower relapse rates than the group in the middle. But the group in the middle had lower relapse rates than the people who just went for traditional psychological counseling. And that's just one example that they attributed to being able to better cope with the cravings, like the natural production of endorphins and dopamine in the brain. And this is just one example of lots and lots of studies that have come to that same conclusion. The amazing conclusion of, there was one study that looked at 40 previous studies that took place over a 10-year period. That study came to the conclusion that even 5 minutes a day of exercise at a level 2, which means basically you're starting to walk and your breathing is getting very higher, would be helpful in reducing relapse rates. So, I mean, it's uncontroverted that there is a correlation between a healthy and active lifestyle and lower relapse rates. And the same is true for nutrition. And the reason is that number one, a well-nourished body can handle the cravings much better, okay? If you're eating foods that have the vitamins and the minerals that we need, you're giving your body what it needs, you avoid cravings. If you avoid hunger, it lessens the desire to go for something. So, and also from the point of view of what we were talking about earlier, avoiding spiking your blood and then dropping it down, the sugar levels in the blood. When you break that cycle of highs and lows, and for example, like sweet potato we were talking about this morning, you have more consistent energy over the course of the day, you're much less likely to be like acting out or to be
mood stabilizing.
Exactly. So you have that more consistent mood during the day, which makes it easier to cope with things as they come your way. And then I'm sure, given the fact pattern that you described, there's a lot of self-esteem issues that come, especially for a woman, with putting on substantial weight, in sobriety. And so I guess there's also isolation that comes into play there. So all of these factors taken into consideration are not positive for trying to stay sober. But that's why I think, look, if she came, let's say if this person comes to day one tomorrow, she meets people she likes.
She's already in CrossFit.
Okay, she's in CrossFit now.
Yeah.
And is she doing good?
She's doing really well.
And what does she say? Her life is better?
Her life's changed since.
All right, see? No, but I'm telling you, but that's what day one is about.
That's
Because
right.
she's not isolating. She's not eating in secret. She's not self-loathing. She's not hating herself. She's taking pride in herself. She stepped out of her comfort zone. She's meeting like-minded people. Things are getting better. Relapse rates go lower. I mean, there's no way around it, And so I think that, again, day one, if you're in North Carolina and you're listening to this and you're up on the fence going, oh, maybe I'll go. Go.
Come on.
You have nothing to lose.
Come on
you have
out from
everything
Oklahoma.
to gain.
We don't care.
And it might be the first day, that's what we call it, day one, of a whole new way of looking at your
Just a new
sobriety
year.
and a whole new way of looking at how you're going to spend 2019.
You hit on something. We're getting to the home stretch, Tom.
All right.
I promise you, it's getting a little hot in here.
It is.
Yeah.
Hey, can we open that door up?
No, I don't know that camera. We're almost done. We got like 15 minutes left, maybe. You hit on something at the beginning of the show a couple times. How important is it to have that blood work done to get a baseline of like where you're?
I think it's really important. I mean, and there's a whole chapter on it in my book. And what I do is I teach people how to read their own blood work.
Okay.
Because quite frankly, I think and I think people will agree with me, doctors are so busy these days because of the way insurance companies work that they don't oftentimes read as carefully as they should the blood work, you know? So you should be able to read your own blood work and have a general idea on what your overall health is and isn't at any given time. Here's the thing about the blood work. It's going to tell you things that you can't see. You can see, you know, if you lose weight or gain weight, that kind of thing. But you can't see if you have a fatty liver.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. You can't see if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic. You can't see what your triglyceride levels are, you know? And this kind of information can actually save your life. And let me tell you why. Let's say you're listening to this podcast and you want to come out tomorrow and go nuts, right? But you don't know what your cardiovascular health is. You may be putting yourself at risk, right? And let's just say, Caleb, oh, you're one of a kind.
I love this dude.
So let's just say, like, you're coming out tomorrow, but you're not aware of your cardiovascular problems. You could actually hurt yourself. You want to know that information because information, it's good. It's going to be there whether you know it or not, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, I mean, we try and avoid, the truth, but we need to know the truth because then, like I talk about in the book, you can decide. For example, let's just say I'm someone with some cardiac issues resulting from smoking and cocaine abuse and drinking and the whole thing.
Check.
Yeah, all these things, right? So you may not want to do CrossFit because you may want to mellow your body out. You may want to relieve stress and tension, right? So you may want to do more of like yoga, or you may want to do certain other kind of Pilates or things like that are less intense, but maybe de-stress your body more. And so there's not like a one-size-fits-all shoe for everybody in this. And so I think they really need to know what the blood work is, to know what their present health is and what goals might be helpful for them to move towards. And the other thing is, you know, like when you're on a diet, like I took a day one picture the first day I started doing this back in July of 2011, right? So I have a metric by which to gauge the exterior of my body, right? So if I didn't take that picture,
no reference point.
You have no reference point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the same is true for your blood because my blood work is so good. my doctor calls it the equivalent of Dr. Bankovic, the equivalent of a 25-year-old Ethiopian marathon.
Does he really?
I'm serious. I didn't. Yeah, you know, and yeah, because I know what my blood says, and I know how good it is. So my point is, your blood, his saying, not mine, but Dr. Bedik's, is blood doesn't lie, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're doing something right, you will find out from your blood work. If you're not doing it right, you'll also find out from your blood work. And then you can modify diet, you can modify your exercise regimen to try and move your blood work towards the goal that you want to achieve. This is like proactive. We're not treating a disease. We're trying to avoid the disease by being proactive and understanding the story that our blood is telling us.
I think so many people get scared too to even
getting
find
my blood
out
work done.
what. I wish I had, you know,
Before you started,
before
yeah,
I started,
me
because
too.
I've like
But this
my
is what I'm
fitness
saying.
journey.
But I have never met. I don't know of any rehab institutions that do that kind of blood work.
Right.
Well, we're going
Or
to do
even
it.
talk about it. But let me tell you how I know my blood work from back then. When I was on the way to rehab upstate New York, I was taken by ambulance to a hospital to the cardiac unit because I was so sick and I thought maybe I had a stroke. It was terrible.
How old was you?
I was 44 then, so I'm 51 now. And so I have the blood work from the hospital. I requested it
Wow.
because I wanted to know what it was. This is like 2 years later because I wanted to get that to
I bet
figure.
they probably have
Like no,
some.
I would not have known if I had gone
Yeah.
straight to rehab. So I requested it to find out what my blood work was, and it's not a pretty picture. But the reality is, this is like such good information for everyone to have, and they really should do it.
But then again, the importance of knowing how to read it, which
Right.
you can find in
In
the
my book, what I do is I took all the major
book.
abbreviations for the major markers, like reactive protein, triglycerides. I explain what good and bad cholesterol is. People hear the term, but I explain what it is. I give you all the things you need to know. I give you the ranges, and I give you questions to ask your doctor based on certain levels if they come up in the test. So it's the whole chapter. It's called Getting Started, is geared towards someone who has no experience in this kind of a thing.
I'm truly excited, Tom. I really am. So especially for my friends and the people that are involved with Red's Hope, I'm definitely going to encourage them to read the book.
I think this is good information for everybody. Yeah.
Like you said, it's not a diet fad. It's not about. It's about your health. You know, your well-being.
I think we should come back maybe in the summer, maybe around the time of your wedding, after the wedding, right? But maybe we could do a larger event for the larger Cherokee community, and not just addiction recovery. Like on the
larger, you mean like size or?
Just to talk about, like, for example, like that recipe that we're working on for tomorrow, healthy alternatives for sugars and things like that they can use to try and feel better about themselves. So I really think that's something we could do, because I think there's definitely crossover for other people that don't identify as being an addiction.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that, guys.
Dang, Caleb's coming strong today. You hit on logging your food.
Right.
How are you going to spend your New Year's Eve tonight, man?
Oh yeah, here we go.
Well, I've been doing this. It just started because as a quirk. My first New Year's Eve, I was up in Maine, and I decided to go to. I had no money because I was so broke, back then and stuff like that. But I went up and I stayed in this really inexpensive $40 a night hotel up in Acadia National Park because nobody's there. And, it's so cold in the summertime.
You went up there by yourself?
By myself, yeah. And then I had started keeping journals. So I reread all my journals from that year, and I came up with a 250 things on a gratitude list that I was grateful. And it wasn't like now. It's like back then it was like my gums aren't bleeding anymore because I used to put cocaine on my gums and I had bleeding gums.
Yeah.
It was just like I'm not in foreclosure. It's like major things,
Right.
And I still have that list. And so I decided that I came up with like my goals for 2012 and stuff. And it was just such a powerful thing to be alone and reflect on what had happened that year in these journals that I've been journaling ever since. And on New Year's, I'd stay home. I'd look at the journals, come up with a gratitude list and some ideas for what I want the next year. And then it's really important for me to be up early to see the first sunrise of the year. Because I think being there to see that sunrise, it's another commitment. It's a commitment to live another year healthy and happy. And I just think people can give that kind of a thing a try. I live, by the way, I live a block from Times Square. That's where I live. Yeah. And so I've been in New York, over the last couple of years for some of those New Year's. So, I hear the chaos outside, and the day, like today up there in my neighborhood, after 4 o'clock, you can't get anywhere because there's all the police lines and everything's shut down. And then the next morning, if you get up early, there's puke everywhere. They don't show that on TV.
Right.
They just show like everybody. And it's a mess. And so, to live so close to chaos and feel so like liberated and empowered in the solitude of meditation and doing something that's good for me is just the most amazing feeling.
Let's go around the table here and talk about a physical goal. Let's talk about some goals right quick.
Okay.
Who wants to go first?
You want me to set some physical goals for 2019?
Yeah, let's hear it, man.
Or what are you asking for here?
This ain't no New Year's resolution. This is
one goal or what?
Just however you want to share.
I'm competing on March 30th, so I'm hoping to come in first in the competition, the men's physique drug-tested competition. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
That's going to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on March 30th. So that's
nice.
You're gonna kill it, Tom. I seen you in the gym this morning. You're gonna.
All right. How about you?
Yeah.
I was sharing with Caitlin the other day. I shared with Shelly. I want to run multiple 50 milers this year. 5 to 10 50 milers, and I want to do
5 to 10.
Hold on.
I want to. Not only do I want to run them, I want to be competitive. I mean, winning When my first one is March 2nd, I want to win that one, and multiple 100 milers. And at this point, I just want to finish.
Can I just say something before I don't mean to be rude? You win just by showing up for those races.
Yes, sir.
At first,
you win in the
did.
training. You win in the training.
That's right. That's
Every
right.
day. That's when you win. So, it's nice to come in first, but you already won. Can't you tell? Look at your life. You won.
Well, when I first started, it was just I want to complete this. Now I'm like to the point to where I know I can be competitive. I was telling you about this in the bathroom. We're researching the Olympic team and like what it would take. Like that's something it might be in the future.
By the way, it's kind of hard to find out all the Olympic stuff. To research
just stay away from the gymnastics program. They got issues.
Ooh.
Oh goodness.
Can we crack that door just a little bit?
Yeah.
One of my
air in.
Thank you.
I'm definitely making this a goal for 2019. I was wanting to do it in October, but it didn't work out. I want to do a half Ironman, and I know there's one coming up in is it Lake Norman?
What, 50 miler?
No, half Ironman.
Wilmington.
No, not that one. There's one sooner than that.
Oh no.
Anyways, there's one that's coming up. A friend of mine, a coworker at the hospital, was telling me about it. And then
that's just for people that don't know. That's a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike ride, and then a half a marathon run.
yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Mind you, last December we made I told the boys that Caleb was coaching, if they would win one game, I would jog, maybe walk a half marathon, my first half marathon. And at that time I was like, what did I just do? Because then of course they won the next game. So all them boys, as soon as they won, they're like, you gotta run a half marathon. And so now I'm wanting to do my first half Ironman, and I want to do my first 50 miler.
Wow. I'm getting tired just listening. I mean, it's amazing.
Right. Mine's easy, man. Consistency. The first 4 years of my recovery were spent on the mental and internal aspects through like meditation and things like that. And I really didn't even approach any of this physical fitness until I met this guy last year. And even at the beginning, it didn't necessarily cross my mind. But you kind of hit on, Tom, so much of the damage that was done, is not visible. I can't see it, right? That's why I was kind of asking about blood work and stuff, because I'm the type of person that's always had that jet speed metabolism that I can literally, I weigh the same that I've weighed since I was 15 years old, right? I can eat anything that I want and I don't see the repercussions of that food. So, and the issue is that right now I'm a full-time student. I work a couple jobs and do this. And so when school's in session, I find it difficult to be consistent. And when I'm on break, like I am right now from school, I'm able to get that routine down physically through my yoga practice and through trail running and things like that. I'm able to do it. It's when life gets chaotic, I struggle to stay consistent with the physical activity. I'll still meditate. I'll still read. I'll still spiritually stay on track because I know that supports my recovery. You know what I mean? So that's my priority. And so I think now it's time to take it to the next level in 2019 and be able to physically and hopefully in part with this book that'll be out in a week.
Well, we got copies at the
tomorrow.
gym.
I'll have a copy tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. Kick ass.
And listen, one other thing I want to mention to you, because it's true for you and anybody else who buys the book. I set up an active sober community page on Facebook. We have the main spiritual adrenaline
I'm
page.
in there. Yeah,
He's in there.
And then the active page. I'm going to be blogging live on Facebook Live on that page because I'm not just interested in selling a book. I'm actually interested in people accomplishing their goals and getting, the value out of the book and changing their life. So twice a month in the United States, and then once a month I'll be doing it on a certain time, so that people, because we have about 8,000 Facebook fans now in Europe and the UK and stuff. So But so it'd be total of 3 times a month. But that's why if you ask me a question, if you message me on Facebook, I'm going to be answering those questions because I want like an army of people a year from now to be like, this book works. Mm-hmm. This works because this way
David Goggins has got going on.
This way we can go to institutions and say, why aren't you talking about these issues? Why aren't you giving people all the tools they need? And why can't we integrate this as more of a component of the mainstream addiction recovery programs all around the country? So I'll do anything I can do to help people who buy the book.
Thank you for joining us, Tom.
Thank you.
You are a badass. Day one event.
Yeah.
Tom, you are a badass, my friend.
You are a badass.
A machine.
The day one event is tomorrow at CrossFit 2232 in Bryson City from noon to 3 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Come out, purchase a copy of the book, get these 2 to sign it.
Do some CrossFit. Meet your neighbors. Have fun.
Yeah.
Meet your neighbors.
And by the way, and you're not going to wind up with a hangover. It's a healthy way to start the new year.
Yes, come on out.
And to set those attentions and to kind of build some momentum for 2019.
Yes,
so.
yes.
And just to think, I just have to put this out there, Tom, just the fact that, you're starting this big book tour and you could have started anywhere and you picked here.
Oh, I know. Thank you, Tom.
That's amazing. And that means a lot to us.
You guys are great.
Appreciate you guys tuning in. Y'all have a wonderful new year.
Be safe out there. Be safe out there.
Y'all are amazing.
Take care.